Hello guys, and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, welcome to the channel. On today's video, we're going to learn how to make this beautiful top. If that sounds like something you're interested in learning, keep on watching and let us get straight into it. So we're going to start off by drafting this. I went ahead to rule out the lines. So those lines we ruled out, that is where our pattern is going to start from. So we're going to go ahead now to just rule out all our lines. I'm going to rule my shoulder to bust point line, and then my shoulder to under bust. I'm also going to rule my shoulder to waistline, and then from my waist I'm going to mark out my crotch depth. So I marked 10 inches for my bust point, and I also went ahead to mark 18 inches for my waistline. So from that waistline point, I'm going to mark my crotch depth. To get your crotch depth, you want to sit down and then take your measurements. I'll have it illustrated on the screen, and I went ahead to mark that. For me, that is 6 inches. And then I'm just going to distribute the measurement all the way to this front and then rule a straight line. So from my crotch depth line, I'm going to go up from that point by 6 inches, and I'm going to rule it out. That is going to be where the sort of like the panty area of the top is going to sit. So I'm just going to mark that out and then rule a straight line again. So I'm just going ahead to label out all the lines we have here, so you know what we're working with. This is our shoulder line, and then this is our bust point line, our waistline here, and this at the bottom is the crotch line. Sorry, you could not see that part. Now I'm going to go ahead to mark my shoulder measurements divided by 2, which is 7.5 inch. We're going to go ahead to mark that out, and then from that point I'm coming down by 1 inch for the shoulder slope. From that 1 inch, we're also going to come down to mark our armhole depth, and then we're going to go ahead to just rule everything out. Now I'm going to mark my bust measurements divided by 4 at that point, just to serve as a guide for us to create the armhole. After doing so, I'm using my curve now to just curve it out to create our armhole. Now for the neckline, I'm going to mark on this point, I'm marking 3.5 inches, and then for the depth I'm going to use 2.5 inches, and then I'm just going to curve it out. So we've gone ahead to create the upper part. Now we're going to move on to add our body measurements divided by 4, and then we're going to take out 1 inch from our body measurement, which is going to give us 8 inches. So my bust measurement divided by 4 is 9 inches, but because the fabric we're working with tends to stretch a lot, we're going to work with 8 inches instead of 9 inches. So for my waist, I'm also going to mark my waist measurement divided by 4 minus 1 inch, and I'm also doing the same thing for my hip. So I'm going to do that now and then readjust our armhole area to match up with the correction we just made, because the fabric we're working with is a very stretchy fabric. So you can see that I'm retracing my armhole back again. So this is our new armhole, the new line we created. Now after doing that, we want to go ahead now to rule out our body measurements. The measurements we just marked out, we're just going to rule them to meet each other. So guys, what we want to do now is we want to curve out the bottom part. So from that last line here, we're going to mark 3 inches. So divided by 2, we're marking 1.5 inch on this point here for the curve at the bottom. And here I just went ahead to go down by 1 inch to create my new hip line, simply because I did not want my hip line to be at that point. That was not the correct line to place it, so I just came down by 1 inch. So now I'm going to retrace that line, and that is going to be our new hip line. So on that point now, I'm going to place my hip measurement divided by 4 minus 1 inch. So my hip measurement divided by 4 is 10 inches. So I'm going to take out 1 inch, and that's going to give us 9 inches. So I'm going to mark it out as I did just now, and I'm going to retrace the lines. Next, from this crotch depth here where we came out by 1.5 inch, we're going to extend the measurements there. We're going to come down by 3 inches. That is going to be for you to pin it all the way to the back side of your bum. So I just went ahead to extend that part by 3 inches, and I'm retracing the lines. Now we're going to go ahead now to curve out that panty shape at the bottom from this part all the way down. So I'm going to start off by creating dotted lines all the way to that point, and then after creating the dotted lines, I'm going to go in with my ruler to just trace it out. After rolling that out, I'm going to go ahead to outline the whole pattern with my marker so you see everything clearly. So this is what we have after doing that. This is what we have for the front. We're going to go ahead now to cut the front piece and then move on to cut the back. So for the back piece, we're just going to place our front pattern on top of the back like this, and I'm going to add some weight on it so it doesn't move while I trace it out. So we're basically going to trace out what we have on the front onto our pattern paper, and then we're just going to make some slight changes. So what we're going to do now is at this bum area, I'm going to come out by about 2 inches to just extend it, because the bum area is going to cover your butt nicely. So we want to have that. So you want to come out by either 1.5 inches or you come out by 2 inches. And then I'm going to curve this all the way back to that crotch area. Next, we're going to create the neckline. So for the back, we're going to come down by 1 inch. So we're going to come down by 1 inch and then curve it back out, and that's the only difference between the front and the back. So now I'm going to curve that out, and then we're going to trace everything out. Now after doing so, we want to go ahead now to cut the back piece. So you can either trace it out and then cut your pattern, or you can just place it down like this and just cut it directly the way you see me doing right now. So we're done cutting out the pattern. This is the front pattern piece, and then this is the back piece. So now we're going to move on to cut this on our fabric. So this is the fabric we're working with for this tutorial. This is Lycra fabric, I believe that's what it's called, and you can see that it stretches very well on both sides. So that was why we did not add that 1 inch. So this is the fabric we're working with, and we're working with about 1 yard of this fabric. 1 yard was enough to make the top. So let us get right into the cutting. So I've gone ahead to place my pattern on the fabric, and the fabric is on fold, and we're just going to go ahead to start cutting this. So we're going to cut this, leaving 1/2 inch seam allowance at the sides. So after cutting this out, this is what it looks like. I just went ahead to open it up to show you guys what it looks like. So this is what we have. Now we're moving on to do the same thing to cut out the back piece as well. So I did the same thing I did for the front. I cut this, leaving 1/2 inch seam allowance at the bottom as well as at the top part. So this is what we have. Now we want to go ahead to start sewing. So these are all our fabric pieces. I went ahead to cut out my basic long sleeve. As you can see, I have a pattern on how to draft your basic sleeve. I'll have it linked in the description box below or somewhere up here on the screen. So these are all the pieces we're going to work with. So I'm going to set the pieces aside and we're going to work on the front piece. So for that crisscross design at the front of the top, I brought back our front pattern, and I'm just placing my tape here so I mark out where I want it to sit. So I want it to be somewhat close to my under bust. So I'm going to mark 12 inches or 12.5 inches depending on what you want to. If you want it to cover from your under bust all the way up, and then from the top part you want it to get into the armhole area, so I went ahead to mark 6 inches, as you can see. So I'm just going to place my tape now and see what I have. What I have there is about 6 inches, but I ended up making it about 7 inches, so it's wide enough. So you want to take note of that 7 inches measurement we just took, and then from this point here what we have is 8 inches, so you also want to take note of that. So these are the fabric pieces I went ahead to cut out for this. I went ahead to cut out 2 for the crisscross, and each of them is about 16 inches long. So this is cut as a rectangular shape. As you can see, I'm going to fold this and place it down, and you can see that that 8 inches I was talking about is what we have there. You even want to make sure it's about 8.5 inches when you fold it. So what we have here is 16 inches long. Then for the width is close to the 7 inches I took. I just went ahead to add in an extra 1 inch or 2 to make it wider, so we can pleat on it at the sides a bit. I hope you understand. So the measurement for this is 16 inches by 8 inch, but you want to go ahead to make this 17 inches by 8 inch for a better result. And we have 2 pieces of this, as you can see. So you just want to watch closely at what I'm going to do. So I'm going to hold the both pieces equally. You can see that I've divided this piece in two, so I know where the midpoint is going to sit, and I'm just going to hold that and then gather this also from the midpoint and then just twist them together like this. After twisting, this is what we have. You can see that this is very easy, and at this side here you just want to overlap them so they cover up each other. So you want to overlap them very well, and then this is what you're going to place at the front part of your top. So when you're placing this on the front part of your top, you want to overlap it like this and then just gather the excess we have there to the desired width that you want. So we're going to take this over to the fabric and place it on our fabric for us to sew. So guys, I've placed this down on the front piece and I created a notch here to know where we're going to place that bottom part. I also created a notch at the armhole area at that top part there. So we're going to just stitch this along the sides, following the shape of the armhole all the way down. And you also want to go ahead to create pleats with the excess you have there, just the way you see me arranging it. You can also pin this down if you know you're going to find it hard to just sew directly on it, and just stitch it all the way down. So I'm going to do that now for both sides. So this is what we have after stitching this down. If you have your overlocking machine, you want to go ahead to use it to just overlock this kind of fabric, so your sewing is going to be very easy. I do not have that, so I'm just sewing this with my regular machine. Now I have my back piece placed on the front piece, right side facing each other, and I'm just going to arrange the shoulder areas together. I'm also going to pin this down to just secure them in place, and then we're going to stitch them down by 1/2 inch on both sides. So I've gone ahead to stitch the shoulders together. Now I'm bringing in the sleeve, and we want to go ahead to attach the sleeve to our bodies. So I'm going to align them together and just pin the sleeves to the shoulder area, the armhole area, so we can sew this. You can see that I started off from the joining at the midpoint of our shoulder. We're just going to pin this all the way around and sew this. We're done pinning this down, and this is what it looks like. So I'm going to take this to the machine now to just stitch this all the way around by 1/2 inch. So we're going to stitch it along the sides like this, and then we're doing the same thing for the opposite sleeve as well. So you want to go ahead to stitch that down before you go ahead to close up the sides of your sleeve. So I've gone ahead to attach the sleeves on both sides, and this is what we have. You can see what it looks like at the armhole area. Now we want to go ahead to flip this over to the wrong side so we can close up the sleeves as well as the sides of our top. Now we're going to start off from the sleeve area, and we want to go ahead to stitch this all the way to the armhole area and then take it straight down. So we're stitching this down by 1/2 inch. So after stitching both sides of our top, this is what we have. We're going ahead to do this on both sides, and this is what it's looking like so far. Now for the bottom part of the top, which is this area here, you want to go ahead to overlock the rough edges and then just fold it in neatly. But I do not have an overlocking machine, so we're just going to go ahead to straight up sew this. So from these areas here, you just want to fold it in and then stitch it down by 1/2 of an inch. So from this point here, you're just going to fold it the way you see me doing. We're going to fold it and then we're going to stitch it down on both sides, and then at the edges here we're also going to fold the edges all the way and then just stitch it all the way around. So I'm going to do that now. Next, for the sleeve, we want to go ahead to fold in this bottom area. So like I said, for the bottom part, you also want to overlock this and then just fold it in. We do not have an overlocking machine, so we're just going to fold it like this and then stitch it all the way around. So the fabric is going to stretch, as you see right now, so you don't have to worry about it being too small because it's going to stretch into your body measurements. So we're going to do that now and then come back to finish up the neckline. So after we went ahead to sew that, this is what we have. You can see what the bottom part is looking like, and then the sleeve area we also did the same thing. I'm just going to trim out any excess thread and then we're going to work on the neckline area now. Now for the neckline area, we want to go ahead to take our measurement all the way around to know what we have there. And when you're taking your measurement, you do not want to stretch the fabric, you just want to take the measurement as it is. So that is what I'm doing right now. So after taking the measurements, what I had for my neckline was about 23 inches. So I had to take the measurement again just to be sure and to avoid making any mistakes. So what I had there was 23 inches. So we're going to use that 23 inches to cut out the piping for the neckline. So we're going to cut out the band we're going to use to pipe the neckline. So I already went ahead to cut out the band for the neckline. This is 2 inches wide and then the length is about 17 inches. So our neckline we took was 23 inches, but because the fabric tends to stretch a lot, I went ahead to remove 6 inches from that 23 inches, which gave us 17 inches. So we're going to use that 17 inches as the circumference for our neckline, and the width of this is 2 inches like I mentioned earlier. So this is going to be placed on fold and then we're going to stitch it by 1/2 of an inch around our neckline area. So that is what we're going to do now. So before we attach this to the top, we want to fold this in two like this, and then we want to go ahead to stitch this down on this point just so we do not have any rough edges. So guys, as you can see, I've gone ahead to stitch it down on this point, and this is what we have. You can see what it looks like. It tends to stretch a lot. I'm just going to go ahead now to trim out the excess fabric at that point where we just stitched, and then we want to go ahead to attach this to our top. So I'm going to fold this. Sorry, my hand wasn't in frame, but I basically just fold this in two, and I'm bringing in the neckline area so we can start sewing this. So I placed the joining of the band at the shoulder area where we have our shoulder joining, and I'm just going to start sewing this from that point. So I'm sewing this by 1/2 of an inch, and we're just going to stitch this all the way. And as we're stitching, we want to stretch that band so that it fits into the 23 inches neckline, because our neckline is 23 inches but the band is 17 inches. So we want to go ahead to stretch this as we go. You're not stretching the top itself, you're just stretching the band so that it fits into the neckline of the top. I hope you understand. So that is what I'm doing right now. I'm just going to stitch this all the way to the other side. So guys, as I attach this to the top, I just want to announce to you guys that we're finally going to have our first ever online class in the month of October, which I will be officially announcing very soon. So we've had a lot of requests for this class and it is finally here. So you want to stay subscribed and stay tuned because I'll be dropping more information on this class very soon. So guys, after stitching this all the way around, this is what our neckline is looking like. So to finish this up, we want to go ahead to top stitch on the outer part, just so that joining we have on the inside lays down very well. So that is what we're going to do now. I'm going to go ahead to top stitch on it all the way around. So guys, after I was done with the neckline, I just went ahead to put it on just to see what the fit was looking like, and it was totally okay with me. And now we're just going to finish this up by adding the pins at the bottom parts, so we can like pin the top at the bottom, and we're done. So I'm going to do that and then show you the final result. So guys, this is the final result. If you enjoyed watching this video and you found it helpful, do not forget to give this video a thumbs up. And if you enjoy watching videos like this, I'm sure you're also going to enjoy watching this one up here, so you can go check that out. And I will see you guys on the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye guys.